Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop of the County Commissioners. Would you all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all for coming. The first thing we have on our agenda today is planning, and we have Invenergy presentation. So would you bring forward, Don, whoever you need?
And commissioners, as we launch into this presentation and get ready for this, this just came to my attention that this was going to be on the workshop on Friday. In looking at just giving a brief glance to the nature of the presentation, my understanding is that this company is going to present about a specific solar project that may be happening out in the Pleasant View area. It's going to require some permitting from the county. It's going to require going through the land use process. At this point, my understanding from planning and zoning is that no application has been submitted to the county. This hasn't been in front of planning and zoning yet, and this obviously hasn't been in front of you guys yet. Assuming that an application is submitted, this is going to come before this board at some point. You guys are going to have a public hearing and make a decision on that application. Given that, my advice at this time would be, to the extent that this company wants to give an overview of what they do generally, I think that's fine to hear. Hear a company profile, that sort of thing. To the extent that they're presenting specific information about the project, this is not the time or place for you guys to hear that. You're going to act as a quasi-judicial body when you evaluate the application, and at that point in time, you're going to get to hear information from the general public, from the company, from everybody involved in the project, and you're going to have to make a decision. To hear information about the specific project at this point in time would be somewhat akin to a judge weighing information outside a court before a court hearing, and that's not appropriate. And so, I guess to the extent that the company wants to present about their general profile and talk to us a little bit about what they do, I think that's completely appropriate. But my advice to you would be that we don't hear any information about any specific project that's going to be permitted or asked for.
Okay. All right, well then I'm going to ask whoever is doing the presentation, can you do that? Can you just give a broad overview without any specifics?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then I will also caution you that at any time, if our attorney feels that we're seeing something that would affect that quasi-judicial judgment, that we will interrupt it and stop it. Okay?
Understood.
All right.
Do we still have any slides or anything to go off of?
You don't have email?
It should be like just very general.
Yeah, it's the
PDF.
general information.
No, yeah, just very general Invenergy.
So I'd like to introduce, this is Melanie Maderos with
SWCA Environmental Consultants. We're consulting with Invenergy, just providing environmental support and project support.
and then we have Blake Crow with Invenergy and John Lupo with Albright.
LLC. I'm a consultant to Invenergy.
Thank you.
Okay.
There you go.
Can we make it just a little bit wider so the audience can see as well?
I'm sorry, I guess I didn't.
If you just get up in here, go on.
If we zoom in on, the PDF.
And you're going to have to make sure you pull those mics
Super
to
close.
you.
Very, very
And-
All
close.
right.
Yeah, because it's not just in the room, but we actually are airing this live, so we want to make sure that everybody gets all the information.
Sure.
So again, I'm just going to ask you to get real close to it to make sure that you can, everybody can be heard.
All right.
All right, thank you.
So a little bit of background on the company before we dive into Colorado specifics. We are a renewable energy company. We are headquartered in Chicago. We have a remote office in Denver, which is where I'm based. We do solar, wind, and natural gas projects, in addition to storage projects that are co-located with the generation projects. Within Colorado, we have some numbers up on the screen. We have, let's see, 3 operating projects. So we have, there's a map in the bottom left corner to kind of give you an idea of the space we've been in. We do not have any projects on the western slope yet, and this is one of the advantages of reaching the western side of the state. I'm sorry, I'm trying to stay away from the project. So in general, some of the main benefits are you're generating energy that is going towards our state's climate action goal to produce a certain amount of energy by 2040. Is it on?
You need it,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's helpful. Just have the same thing up.
It's the same thing, just so he can see it better.
Yeah. Some of the other benefits are, of course, job creation, as well as providing electricity to homes in the areas. So, oh, sorry, I can't say that. Okay, so yeah, as you're going down, you can see it at kind of a larger scale back area of where we are, and a lot of that is in Texas. We have not done the same amount of projects on the western side of the country as we have on the east. A lot of those projects, as you can imagine, are in Kansas, Illinois, Iowa. So that's where a lot is concentrated. We just recently started incorporating offshore wind into those, so I don't believe that's on the map yet, but that'll be on the western side as well, in addition to New York. We also have international projects, which are not represented here, in Japan and Mexico. Our company has been around for 20 years. This is our 20th anniversary this year, which is a fairly long time period for a company in renewable energy. We are very established in the sense that we have been around. We've had to deal with certain scenarios. We have absorbed companies that were too eager and not quite ready to take on the development projects that they went after. So all of those points speak to our endurance and our presence in these areas. This next sheet, solar, is just going over our solar projects in general. So it has the megawatts up there. I know that's a big number, but to give you a sense, nope. Sorry, another project specific moment. Solar is typically a less invasive technology as far as developments go. It's not these wind turbines that are in your face. It's pretty minimal as far as maintenance goes. They are put in place. The modules are secured into the ground, and that's the only ground disturbance that's done. Part of our general practice is decommissioning, so that's something that will be included, including both cost and a decommissioning plan of what will happen when the project either expires or the equipment, gets a little bit older. So hopefully that gives you a sense on solar. As we keep going, there should be solar construction that shows you kind of the different phases. As it was mentioned, we're not at any of these points yet. This is very early in the stages. So the first step would be actually going in and grading the land. Then you secure all of the racking, and then you're gonna install the modules on top of that before it starts producing energy that is then carried to the interconnection location.
So I have a quick question. What other counties in Colorado, looking at your map, is that like Los Animas County, Warfenel County? Where are you at?
Yeah, so one is in Kiowa County.
Kyle?
Yep. We have a few that are being developed in Pueblo County. Logan County. Oh, Elbert is a wind project, yep. And Lincoln is a wind project.
Okay, thank you.
While we're stopped, are there any additional questions? No? Okay. All right, so this is obviously a lot of text to be showing on the screen, but this is a handout that we have and is available for anyone to look at. It's about maintenance and once the project is actually live, what is being done to maintain the solar equipment. I'm not even gonna start down that because that's a lot of detail. This is kind of an overview of just our timeline as a company. So you can see it started in 2001 and where we are today, beyond this chart, but 2022. And these are some points. We didn't put this together. This is from the American Clean Power brochure that they put together, but it's just some responses to some general concerns about renewable energy.
Want to hang on for a second?
I'll get you to hold on for a minute. If I could remind everybody, please silence your cell phones or turn them off. That would be greatly appreciated. Okay, go ahead.
All right, I think that was it on this packet. There's a second page to this sheet, but it looks like there's a number 9 as well. No, there's a third page as well. So without going into the project specifics, I'm happy to elaborate on anything about the company or solar projects in general without saying specifics, if there are any questions about those.
I think that was my first question is what other counties, do you have in the state of Colorado, which you provided those, Kiowa, Pueblo, Logan, and Elbert, which are solar. You have others that are wind.
So not all of those are solar. Most of those actually are wind.
Okay.
We are developing solar projects and they're proposed in Pueblo and Mesa County. The rest are wind and they are operating.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mesa?
Mesa, yes.
Mesa?
Yep.
Okay. Questions,
Not at this time.
Commissioner?
Every question I have is related to the project, so.
Right.
Which is somewhat difficult because of a quasi judicial ruling that we'll have to make. Like our attorney said, we actually have to act as a judge, so it's hard to get information from either side to the project prior, because then we are actually tainted one way or another. So we have to keep it very, very a broad scope of what your company is. So.
And just so everybody here understands, I mean, there's a lot of people here and there's a lot of people watching on YouTube. This isn't just applied to the solar company. This is for landowners as well. To the extent that comments are going to be made or letters are going to be sent in, I've advised the commission to try to limit reviewing those as much as absolutely possible, and then they'll consider that at the public hearing when the time comes.
Well, we appreciate being able to share the information we have so far and hope to give you more in the future.
Okay. Well, I don't have any questions, obviously, because mine are going to relate to the project, which we don't want to discuss now other than just the counties. I'm just curious of where your company is actually at. And you're a 20-year-old company. That's kind of all that I have right now. Do you have anything to add, Dawn, Sherry?
Not at this point.
Okay. Commissioner Copenhaver? Which, 850 per square mile or fewer. Yeah, that's pretty minimal. But anyway, okay. I guess, do the consultants have anything that they would like to add?
I might just add, my name's John Lupo. I was, prior to joining Invenergy, in this consulting developer role with Xcel Energy for about 30 years. And the last 20 years of my career there, had the opportunity to work very closely with Invenergy on a number of wind projects in both Colorado and New Mexico. Xcel had a very close business relationship and partnership with Invenergy, and viewed them as a trusted partner. A lot of corporate integrity, financial wherewithal. You can take to the bank what they say. There are a lot of companies in this space that are a little bit fly-by-nightish or in it for a quick buck kind of thing, because it is kind of akin to a gold rush with the transition from fossil fuels to mostly wind and solar. So when I left Xcel, it's one of the companies that contacted me and that I would consider working with, just because of their very strong corporate reputation in the space. I would encourage you to contact these counties that they're operating projects in, because once a project's operational, they become part of the community. They're a lot of times the largest taxpayer in the county. So school districts are very supportive of these projects because of the tax revenue. Obviously, landowners pump money back into the local economy from the lease payments. And then, these projects create ongoing jobs. They tend to employ hundreds of, workers during construction, including as many local workers as possible, and then try to hire locally for operation and maintenance jobs on site. So that's just kind of, I guess, my pitch. But from my perspective, without, again, talking about the project specifically, that's kind of my take on them as a company and a
Okay.
client.
All right, very good. Thank you, Melanie.
Like John said, my name is Melanie Medeiros. I work with SWCA Environmental Consultants. We have about 40 offices across the country. We do have a local office in Durango. I am based out of our Denver office. At SWCA, I'm a project manager. I do have a background in archaeological resources. That's my training. But I manage a variety of projects across the Western United States. We routinely work with Invenergy on their projects, not just in Colorado, but in other states, to make sure that they're considering anything they need to from a permitting perspective regarding environmental resources. I have a lot of experience working in generation and renewable projects. I've also worked for projects related to oil and gas and transportation. In land development, but I've spent my whole career working in environmental consulting, so that's really my area of expertise, and I'm supporting Invenergy on multiple projects at this time.
So your environmental assessments for any project that you do are already taken place and have already been done prior to even moving forward, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so usually what happens, right, is in the environmental considerations are part of an early project, early part of a project, and that happens whether it is, say, at the local county level, like, or whether it would be a federal project if, say, the BLM was involved or something like that. But environmental considerations are a very early part of project planning and project design, and so that's where we step in. We help early on. We also do support projects through the life of a project. We also we'll do environmental studies ahead of time before any kind of development, very early in design process. Usually we do support during a project construction as well. So that could be we're monitoring bird counts, or we have monitors on the ground. We also help support projects with decommissioning and reclamation work as well. So we do support the environmental considerations of a project, and not just renewables, but all projects through the lifetime of a project.
So what's the typical lifetime And if I mean, I'm just talking of projects in general. I'm not talking specifically about
Highly
any of
variable
this.
by project. So it can just be very quick, couple months to years. So it really just kind of depends on the scope of the project.
Okay.
Or
So-
are you talking about the operating life of a
I'm talking, yeah, the operating life. Basically, if you have in Kiowa County and you have a array there, what is the typical, I mean, I know there's gonna be some averages, but what is the typical lifespan?
20 to 30 years would be typical.
Okay,
And our company has been around for 40 years. At this point, we started in Flagstaff, Arizona. We're 100% employee owned. We really value working with our clients long term. So we supported projects continuously, like during that, if you look, there are projects that we've supported over multiple years, not just from their inception. Sometimes it's only inception, sometimes it's only the end. It really just depends on the project. But without, again, going into project specifics, I do have one project that I've been working on for more than 10 years at this point, just supporting it through the entire lifetime of that project. So,
okay.
Have you ever consulted on a decommissioning?
yes, it's been not related to renewables. Mostly related to oil and gas decommissioning.
Okay.
That's kind of the big thing at the moment.
And if it's okay to say, part of the reason that a lot of people don't have experience with decommissioning is because it's such a new technology that it hasn't gotten to the point where it needs to be decommissioned.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So solar and wind projects are so new at this point that none of them have reached their end of life term, their end of life operation at this point. And so there hasn't been substantial decommissioning of those projects yet because they're still either in proposal stages, being built, or in their early years of operation. So,
Okay. Anything else?
I might just mention regarding decommissioning, typically, renewable developers will enter into a bond agreement with the local jurisdiction to ensure that the project is, decommissioned appropriately, the land reclaimed, the equipment disposed of appropriately, and that typically becomes a condition of the land use permit. So I'm sure we could provide examples, from other similar projects. I was also going to just mention real quick, this is likely not the last project of this kind you're going to see. It's probably the first of many. So, and with all the retirements of coal plants on the western slope, the energy grid needs voltage support to stay viable. And both Tri-State and Excel, Black Hills, the bigger utilities in the state are seeking renewables on the western slope. And this county is blessed with abundant sunshine, good quality sunshine. It's a resource that ideally, developers, landowners, decision makers can find common ground to figure out a way to accommodate it, and take advantage of the free energy, zero fuel costs, and yeah, true. So just this project will be hopefully,
So I think, again, we're not
yeah,
talking about any
yeah.
specific
Oh, that's right.
project.
Yep, sorry.
generically,
Yeah, generically.
that is what wind and solar.
Generically, a 100 megawatt project would supply about 25,000 households. So about the number of households in, a county like this. So I'll stop there, but yeah.
Sure. Okay. Commissioners, any other questions?
Not
All
right
right.
now.
Well, I know it's pretty generic what you can present to us. if you don't have anything else, then
Hopefully tonight you can get more in-depth out of Pleasant View.
to the people that are out there, because we really have to keep ourselves separate. Okay?
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank
very
you all.
much.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have our Fairgrounds manager, Justin. When you want to come forward, we're going to talk about the suppression system.
Give it just a minute.
Yeah, we'll give it just a minute, and let it clear out.
Gerald, you said that's pretty much DWCD water out there. Is that project water out there? Is that MBI didn't go out there?
No, it's all project water.
And the water goes with the land, with them, isn't that right?
Water's tied to the land and a corporation can't own it.
Yeah.
That's just federal regulation.
They didn't say anything about doing an archaeological survey, did they? I was just asking about the water. There's just a project water, and the project goes with the land, and the corporation can't own the water. So what happens to the water?
It does.
No, I mean, I know it does. I don't know what happens. What happens?
Well, and that's the thing, you know, the only thing they can do is be to turn their water back
Yeah.
to that deal, because, and I'm sure, and I don't know what they're, I don't know whether they're leasing, buying, what do they do?
I don't know.
Sound like a lease.
Sounds like a lease to me.
Yeah, that's another element.
Yeah.
So
I don't,
And I don't think these guys have done, this is really close, and part of it is canyons and the ancients. You're gonna have to do an archaeological study.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd rather that they go through the process,
Yeah.
and then when they're ready to present, tell us what they want to do.
Do you want to let everybody know about these emails that they're sending to us really?
Yeah.
We're just forwarding them on anyway. Okay. Okay, Justin. Where is
All right.
Dustin?
I didn't catch him, so I think he was kind of busy, but hopefully we can get by without him.
Okay.
Let's see. So this is the suppression system out at the fairgrounds. We've kind of talked that over for a little while now. I got back to Montezuma Water Company on what they could provide us as far as getting a main line from the road, a dedicated line from the road to the building in a 6-inch. That's the maximum they can do, because their
Yeah.
main line is actually 6-inch.
Mhm.
They did verify that with me. I do have a quote for them to come in there and do all the material and hook that up, but I'm assuming it's okay to give you guys, since Montezuma Water Company is the only one that we can go through for this. But I didn't want to put that out publicly unless it was okay.
Yeah, it's not
It's a sole
bid.
source, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not a bid, so we're not
Okay.
exposing anybody's numbers.
So I
It's
do
through
have
the water
this.
company.
Do you want to try to throw this up, Travis?
So this is the 6-inch static line to supply the suppression system.
We'll see if it works.
And then this is just one piece of our puzzle, but this will give you this piece so you can get an idea on it, and then we'll talk about the other piece with Cooper.
Because we've already got the bid from Cooper as far as basically A and B. This is just the static line to actually supply it for the system
Yes,
so that the system is functionable.
correct. And then the other piece with Cooper is what we bid out here a while back, and they were the bid that we went with.
Mhm.
So with that budget, they can do, it would be going to a wet system. to do the east side of
Correct,
that
to do
building.
the east side of the building.
Correct.
The only thing that's being left out would be basically over the dirt.
The arena, yes.
The arena.
And then we do have a couple little complications that we're gonna have to discuss on that, as far as when we do switch that over to a wet system,
Which was the insulation.
which was insulation and or heat tape, some way to heat that pipe up over, the crawl space,
To keep it from
above
freezing.
our rooms.
Right.
So if you would, the archery room and the oil room have, they have their ceiling, they have a crawl space above them. That insulation is right above the ceiling. So the water lines are above that insulation, which means they are susceptible to being froze from outside elements. There's a couple ways that we can combat this, and that would be an extra cost to our bidded cost.
So you're talking the ceiling, and then the water pipes are above.
Yes.
So they're in the attic access.
They're in the attic
Attic
access,
space.
correct. But the
Okay.
insulation is below those water lines, which means that insulation that we do have up there is not gonna protect those pipes, because the pipes are above the insulation.
Correct.
Now, they said we could either do heat tape, which is something that we were talking about when Cooper did come in and do their presentation. And it was kind of iffy whether we wanted to do that. If we do the heat tape, it would be in our best interest to probably replace it every 5 years, just to be on top of it, because it is susceptible to failing.
Yeah, what was the other one?
The
Can't
other
they wrap
thing would
them?
be to try to get insulation up over those pipes and insulate right under the roof line. That way it would be on the inside.
So how far suspended from the wrought iron are they?
I'm not exactly sure, but I'm assuming that there is enough room, the reason they kind of gave us that option when they were up there looking it over. I don't know what our distance is. I'd have to bring that back to you.
Okay.
The other thing that we could look at doing, and he kind of threw this to me today, was we do heat our archery room. We got wall heaters in there. We could run some return vents to that crawl space, so that heat would go up into that crawl space, hopefully keep it at a decent temperature. And in the part where it goes from our meeting rooms to the archery room, there's kind of where our handicap door access is. See, that comes out of that crawl space and then it goes back into the crawl space.
So we just need to make a conditioned space out of it is all we need to
Correct.
do.
So we could go in there and do some kind of pipe over the line. That way that heat would flow between the two, if that makes sense, on our main line, because we would be doing away with anything out in the arena.
So the archery room would be the most susceptible to freezing?
The part above the archery room would be.
Right, because the other one on the other side is exposed, so it's not gonna be near as susceptible.
Yes, the one on the other side where our meeting rooms are upstairs do have heaters in those rooms. So we can always keep that, heated at a decent temperature through the winter.
Okay. All right. Okay,
Okay.
go ahead. Doesn't seem like we can get the Elmo to work, but,
Okay,
Um,
so that bid there, or that quote there from Montezuma Water Company, that kind of covers everything that they will do in their price. And it's pretty pricey for a 6-inch line to run that far and then get a membership on it. If we do that, and then if we do just that east side with the meeting rooms, we would be, like I said, taking out the arena. And then we would be converting it to a wet system instead of a dry system. And then we would have to figure out a way to either heat that or get heat up to it. The other thing that we do got to keep in mind is we do have to remove the existing system from the arena. And the reason for that is it is fire code that has to come out, because if you walk in there and you see something, it has to be functional.
mhm.
So with
Which
their,
is a whole situation that we're in right now.
yep, with their budget that we gave them the bid on, they can go in there, convert all that to a wet. They can remove all the pipe that's in the arena, It would cover everything except for trying to get heat in there, some kind of insulation or heat tape. Unless we just want to try to put some return vents up there in the archery room and get heat.
I think a conditioned space is all we're trying to achieve. And if the archery room is already heated, hot air rises, so it's gonna go to the
Yes.
top anyway, and that's a
Theoretically,
16-foot
yes.
ceiling in there.
It should. And then,
So,
if we do have it connected between the two rooms from the meeting room and the crawl space above the archery room, and we put some kind of corrugated pipe over that, that main branch line that goes between the two, the heat from over here should be able to pass through that, and the heat from over there should be able to pass through that.
right, we can put a
Theoretically.
mechanical fan that'll circulate it also.
And that might not be a bad idea either. So that might be one way to combat this, without doing heat tape or insulation, which could be significant costs.
I'd rather not deal with heat tape
No.
because it's a constant battle, and
The other thing that we would do is we'd put a couple temperature sensors up there. Kind of on the far end, we'd put some kind of temp probe, and that would be hooked up to basically an alarm system. So if that temperature ever dropped below 40, you know, it would kind of let us know so we could go in there and try to get the heat up or something and get
Sure.
that warmed up.
so I'm looking at this cost, a membership fee, is that what? Because that's not actually, this is a static line.
So that
So
is.
you don't typically pay an additional membership fee for a static line because there's no consumption of this at all. And if there's typically then a meter
Mhm.
on the line so that if ever goes off, then you pay for the water that's consumed. Does that make sense?
It does to me.
So,
but-
so this is static. It's not like it's a consumption line. It's purely static. So I'm not quite sure what a $85,000 fee is for a membership fee, because if you reduce that from the total of the $156,000, it seems like you have your $54,000 for parts and labor to put your static line in, which seems very reasonable, very doable.
Mhm.
So my first question, and
Yeah.
can you make 3 copies of this so these guys all have a copy, Travis? I'm not quite sure why we're paying a fee for a static line.
Yeah, and they didn't give me that information. From what I was kind of gathered is that we would have to basically pay for membership because we're having another tap put in. They're tapping into
It's
their
not a
main
tap.
line. I understand that.
This is nothing more than a T to a static line. It's just like to a fire hydrant.
I mean, I can go back and ask them about that, but I can only do what they're gonna, you know,
Correct.
yep. If they say we have to buy that membership, then we have to buy the membership.
Well, I'm curious of why we would have to buy a membership. Because you don't buy memberships to every fire hydrant that's out there. This is nothing more than a fire hydrant. It's
Yes.
just the fire hydrant is in our building. So I would almost, I could look even within the buildings that we have here that are sprinklered. I don't think we have additional tap fees for static line because they're not consumption. Now, obviously, the other line that we have, we're paying a fee for that, off of that 3-inch line or 2-inch line or whatever is there.
Yes,
That feeds.
3-inch, I believe, yes.
That feeds all the water to everything else. Yeah, now that makes sense because it's a consumption line. So just looking at your
Okay.
costs here, the project in my mind, looking at it, should be just under $54,000. Correct? Is that what you're proposing here? That
Without
Montezuma
that
Water
membership
has,
fee, yes.
yeah,
If they're gonna give us something without a membership fee, yes.
because we're already a member at that facility.
Yeah, but we are having them put in a separate
It's
tap.
a static line.
I know that, but they're still going to a dedicated, so they're not gonna tap off of where we're already tapped into.
I understand
You know,
that. It's
they're
gonna be a
have to go to-
new,
Yep, a new thing.
it's a
So
T.
With their company, I'm assuming we have to pay another membership to do that. That is my assumption, that's why they put it on there. I mean, I can get back with you on that answer, but, because I didn't go over that with them. But
Who,
that's just
who
kinda-
prepared this for you?
That was, I talked to Steve,
Bowman?
yeah, I think that's his last name, over at Montezuma Water Company. I don't know if he's the one that actually prepared that. He's the one I did talk to, because I know Dustin was in talks with him, and then he sent that over to me after it was made up.
Okay. Well, I don't have any issues making the call with you or
Okay.
going to see him personally, because this is nothing more than a line like it would be to a fire hydrant.
Okay.
It's not a consumption line. The only time it's ever gonna have consumption is if there is a fire.
Okay, and then the only other thing that we do have to look at as far as this whole suppression system goes is after everything is working and operational, then we would have to rehook up our alarm system on it. And that's something I kind of talked to the electrician about. I don't think it would cost very much. We probably have to put in a new panel, which might be a couple $1,000. But everything else should be run as far as pools.
Right.
Everything should be wired. We do got smoke detectors in those rooms already. So I believe, other than running some wire for temp sensors, if we put temp sensors, a couple temp sensors up there, to let us know, that in a panel, is probably all we're gonna need from the electrician. But he can't verify nothing until it works.
Well,
So-
that's part of the suppression system, because if you actually have a wet system, it actually has to have an alarm system with it.
Yes, they have to have an alarm system with them.
All right. So, questions?
The only thing I see, and it's just sort of nitpicky, is they charged us $85,000 for a 45-inch or 44-inch membership fee.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we were getting a 6-inch line.
So that is for a 6-inch.
Okay.
I know that one spot might have said 4, but see, they made it out for a 4 to start with, so I took it back to them and told them to switch it all over to 6.
Okay.
So that's off of a 6. The 4 was a little cheaper. You're basically doubling the price when you go from a 4 to a 6 from our old quote.
Yeah. I
$45.
Yeah, I saw that too. I'm assuming those are flip-flopped.
Surely.
Commissioner Copenhaver just brought up too, you have a pickup at $85 an hour and a
Backhoe at 45.
backhoe loader at $45 an hour. I'll take that all day long if they'll do that for $45 an hour and they can keep their pickups at home. I'm obviously sure that's
Flipped
flip-flop,
around.
but, so I think we probably ought to have a conversation with them, because I see a lot of holes in what you've given to us right now.
Okay.
And that's just my opinion, gentlemen. If you have anything else that you're seeing that I see.
That's all I see so far.
So basically, to boil it down, we have 3 different things we need to, one, we've already made the decision on the low bid on the suppression system to get it operable, and that was with Cooper.
Yes.
Okay. Second, we have the static line to run the suppression system, which we have in front of us. We just need to get this figured out for sure. And then 3, how do we create the conditioned airspace above?
Correct.
Which that's pretty simple to do. So have you might get a hold of Comfort Air or any of the other I'm just saying, any mechanical people to see what it would take as far as just a venting and a fan to be able to pull that hot air off of the ceiling and put it in that conditioned space. And that shouldn't be a whole lot, because it's not that big of an area.
Yeah. Your electrician might be able to do that.
Yeah, and if it's something that simple, I don't know if Cooper is willing to add that in or not.
Well,
I would
that's
talk to them
not
about
what
it.
the suppression system's gonna do, that's gonna be somebody different. But also too, look and see how much insulation is up there, because if we're heating that and we only have 6 inches, we need to add more. We need to make it to a minimum of an R38 or R48 if we can, because we're paying for that and we're just losing energy through that ceiling.
Okay.
So find out what's up there also with insulation, because if then we fill the cavity, we might have it fixed that way.
You've never checked the temperature up there during the winter time?
No, I have not. Yeah, so I'm not even sure what it is. I do know when they replaced that roof several years back, they put, I believe that's insulated pro panel up there. So I think that does help a little bit from the exterior to those crawl spaces. But again, that insulation's below those water lines, so. I don't know
But
if
there
it's
is
helping.
Correct, but
There
there's
is
insulation on
insulation in
the
the
actual
ceiling.
deck.
Yes, there is insulation on the yes, right above the ceilings.
Which,
But then you also
mean,
got your sidewalls, you know, of course that lets in. And it's not insulated on them sidewalls,
mhm.
so. And the only way to kind of get an idea of what the temperature is up there is to kind of throw something in this winter, I guess, and see what it goes down to, but. I'm assuming they would be fine. And the reason that I say that is because I do know there was some water sitting in those lines from when they've been filled in the past. Now, I don't know if that whole thing was filled with water on that east side, but I do know there was some water in those lines when we were messing with it a year ago, so.
Yeah, to make a conditioned space up there should be relatively simple, because hot air rises.
Yeah.
I would think
Yep,
so.
Just make some
I mean,
holes in
it's
the roof
almost
up there and it
a
should
few
sit.
vents with
Correct.
a circulating
from
motor,
freezing.
90 CFM, and you can pull it right up to the top.
Yeah, and then keep all that kind of controlled.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's probably our best bet with it, so.
But also too, if we don't have enough insulation up there, we need to actually blow it and get it.
Okay.
Because if that was done in the late 80s, it's probably not adequate. It's probably an R19, that's all that's there, and we need to make it twice that. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, man.
No,
We're
that's
gonna make
fine.
you go do more work now.
That's all right. I'll talk to Montezuma Water on that, and then I'll figure out the insulation part. Let you guys know on those.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, we'll put that one to rest for a few days, and then now we'll talk about the fee structure.
Okay. So, I came to you with a couple of these. I kind of showed you the one that I thought we needed to go to, and that still wouldn't cover our costs, so then I kind of brought back a second one that should cover our costs, but if we go to that, I do kind of fear that we might not be able to book the place as much if we go that significant of a cost increase all at once.
Okay, so let's go through them one by one. So
Okay.
what do we currently, so at the top you have your cleaning and your damage deposit,
Correct.
which that goes back to the people anyway, right?
Yes.
So if it's cleaned and there's no damage, that goes back to the people. It doesn't matter, right?
Yes, that is
Okay.
refundable. So I take that up front. If they damage something or if they don't clean the place up when they're done, then I would keep a portion or all of that.
Okay, so cleaning is one thing, damage is more considerate. I mean, what can you replace out there for $1,500 if it's damaged?
A panel,
Not very much.
not very much, nope. Just a
If
few
it's
little things.
truly damaged to where it has to be redone, what can you replace for $1,500?
You know, maybe a door, small things, that would be.
Okay, so you're proposing now the second fee schedule?
So that I was just planning on keeping that to the same on the smaller one, but we could always increase that if we need to. So I did go up to 2,500 on the second schedule. But again, it's, what kind of number do you make that?
Well,
But it ranges from $350 to $2,500, and you get to determine the rate.
and
Yes.
I guess that's what I'm asking is, why is there a range? Why isn't it just a standard fee? Because if nothing is damaged, that goes back to the individual anyway.
That is
This is
correct, yep.
nothing that the county is keeping.
And we could just put a.
Why such a range? I mean, that's a
Standard price.
huge range.
So the reason that there was always a range is because if somebody just goes and rents the beef barn, you know, there's not a whole lot they can do to the beef barn. Now granted, yeah, they could run into the side of it, and we'd have to put some tin up or whatever else, or a door.
You won't replace one of those doors out there for $2,500.
No, but then you get the ones that rent the whole fairgrounds, you know, and if they do a lot more damage, well, what kind of number do we put on that? I guess that's.
Well, to me, this number is insignificant because it doesn't matter. Hopefully, nobody's gonna damage anything.
Exactly.
And they have
exactly,
their insurances. If they do damage it,
Exactly.
this all is just a return fee anyway.
Exactly.
So, I mean, for me, that number, the $2,500 a day, because we hold insurances on everybody that rents the facility, correct?
Yes, we do. And they have to have us as an additional on that policy, so.
So for me, it should just be $350 for their event, and that we are additionally insured under their policy. I don't even think you need the 25, or that other number to me is insignificant, doesn't mean anything. Because that's not stopping the bleeding of what we're asking you to do.
No,
That
that's
doesn't
not
mean
doing
anything.
nothing.
No.
Exactly.
Okay, so, again, we're just talking today, we're not making decisions, but when I look at that, that's what I see. Just put one number there, and it doesn't have to be at the fairgrounds manager's discretion. It is what it is,
Okay,
okay? That makes sense,
I like it.
gentlemen? All right.
Yes.
The only thing that I see about that, Jim, is that, you know, if they just rent the beef barn and they don't clean it up, it doesn't take much to clean that up.
No, it does not.
But if they rent the whole thing and they don't clean it up, it's gonna take him a lot longer to clean
Yeah, it might
things
take us a
up.
week.
It's gonna cost more
No idea.
money. And they may not have damaged anything, but the fact is, if they don't take care of things and clean up the kitchen, clean up everything they use, then it takes him a long time to clean
Then you
that
wanna
stuff
set it
up.
at the higher number?
Well,
Because it's all gonna go
I
back
don't
to
wanna
him
do it at
anyway.
$350, cause it's gonna take him way more than that to clean the whole place up. And
Then,
it may not be damaged, it may just be that they didn't clean
because
when
it's
they
all,
got done. That's
because all
what I-
you're
that's
doing
all
is
I'm
holding the
questioning.
check, and then you're giving it right back
That's
to
what
them
I'm
when they're
doing, yes.
done. If everything is adequate, I'm okay with that too.
Well, I just think that that's why there was a range there to begin with, because like he said, if they rent the beef barn, it's not hard to clean that up if they didn't, and he can keep the money. But if they rent the whole facility and he has to clean that up, they may not have damaged anything.
Sure.
But you gotta clean
But
it
you can
up,
clean it up.
it costs a lot more. So he's got a bigger check for that. That's why that range was put there. I can tell you why it was put there a long time ago. That's why it was
I'm
put there,
asking, yeah.
is because, you understand what I'm saying, is
Right.
because he can clean up the beef barn pretty easy for the $350. But to clean up the whole facility, if you rent the whole thing, is a whole different matter of time-wise.
So let me ask you this question, Justin. What do you typically, in the last year, what have you taken for your deposit?
Nothing, because all the events that we've had have been really good with us, so I haven't had to keep anybody's deposits.
Clean it up.
Okay. So like I said,
I
it's
mean-
insignificant.
Well, this isn't a legal matter, but I'm gonna wade in anyway,
Wait a minute.
dangerously.
Look, we get in trouble for practicing law without a license.
That's the great thing about us attorneys. We can
You know what?
do.
I'm good with that. You can make your determination, because it's all gonna go back to the people anyway, unless there's a damaged deposit. So I can live with that. So let's go on to the things that are actually, that way, Ian, you don't even have to weigh in. Perfect. How about that?
Okay.
That's the best.
The more we can keep the attorney just sitting there looking at us, the better off we're gonna be. All right.
'Cause they like to sue people anyway.
So your
What
booking
are we paying
deposit
for?
and fee.
So our booking,
No.
our booking deposit and fee right now is set at $50. And what that does is that books them the day. So if they call me and they want a day, then I say, okay, you gotta sign my contract with $50. And that basically holds the day. That is non-refundable, but it does credit to their total bill. The way that I think that we would probably be better off doing that is to just do a $50 booking and deposit fee, so it doesn't credit to the rest. It'd be an additional. And what that would do would be covering the cost of me to do their contracts, the cost of me to talk to them, email, you know, my time, a little bit of my time for helping them prepare for their event or set up for their event. That is the difference between what we have and what I was proposing on this.
So what do you typically spend on doing that? How much of your time?
It all varies from event to event. I mean, some events see, that's where the tricky part gets into it, because if it's a concert and it's a one-day deal, I could spend a lot of hours, you know, trying to figure things out, and they're only gonna pay for one day because it's a $50 deal. Whereas if it's a rodeo that's 3 days, it might be about the same amount of time to figure out what we're doing, but they gotta pay for 3 days of it. So that's kind of where it does get a little tricky for the per day.
So is $50 a day really
But,
adequate?
but at the same time, that's, you know, that is saying that they're gonna, you know, they'll lose their $50, which ain't much if they decide to cancel their event. And I put it on the calendar and we're prepared for it, and then they decide a week before, you know, we don't wanna hold our event, we're gonna cancel it, then I don't give
So
them
we're
that
already
$50.
out. What if you've pulled all the bleachers and you've done all that?
And see, and that's the
You're
event.
just out.
I know that's the events that usually have 3 days, you know, so I would get $150 because $50 per day. So that's where it's kind of that, I guess, double-edged sword, if you would say. But, you know, do we put a number on there for just per event or per day? I was just trying to keep it in
I
line
mean,
with
to
what
me,
we had.
to me, it's really clear. What do you do when you rent a motel room? Or what do you do when you buy a bus ticket? Or what do you do when you buy a plane ticket? You pay for the ticket, and if you don't show up, guess what happens? What happens?
Well, they don't refund it.
Or you reschedule it, you rebook it.
Yep.
I mean, there's things that you can do,
Exactly.
but you're not $50 a day to just sign it. We're not covering our cost.
No, and I've never really had many events do this where they've canceled at me on, without, you know, postponing per se, you know, and getting with me in a decent amount of
Yeah,
time.
and that's fine, I get that. Life happens, postponing it, it's not like you, but how much time are you spending?
I mean, that's why I say-
$50 doesn't even pay for an hour of your time.
No, it's about that.
You've got a concert coming up, what, Labor Day weekend?
Correct, Labor Day weekend.
What kind of time did you have in booking these people and getting them set up, ready to
You know,
go?
by the time we've done some couple meetings we've done and talked, you know, 6 hours or so already. Minimum, easy.
Yeah.
You know, like,
That's not even $10 an hour of your time.
oh, I get it, exactly. But if I have another event that doesn't take that much, you know, and I only spend an hour, that's where I don't know how to.
Because this here again, if they go through it, this just gets added to the end and it just comes off of their initial fee. I don't think $50 a day is adequate. Commissioner Copenhaver, tell me what happened back in the day.
We set that $50 a day probably back in 2008.
Okay, so if you go with just a 3%.
And it's been there ever since. That's probably what's happened. I can tell you that right now.
Okay, so
Because I doubt it's been changed since then.
nothing has been
Yeah,
changed. That's
that's
why
the
we're in the
problem.
situation that we're in.
So, I guess.
Hold on
the-
a minute, let me do some math.
Go ahead.
2008, you said?
I think that's the last time that I remember that we set these fees.
And nobody can find out, I think you said 12.
No, and I don't know if that was setting all the fees.
No, it
That
probably
was
wasn't.
just, I think, revising some of them. I don't know that it was going through the whole book or schedule.
Okay, so. I think because $50 an hour with benefits for you does not cover your hourly wage. So I would say you're probably gonna spend, on average, 3 hours. Some are gonna be more, some are gonna be less. But this is an average and it just goes to, it comes off at the end anyway. Correct?
Yeah, but what
It's
he's
just
saying is
credited
that
to
So,
them.
that's the way it is currently.
currently,
But I was thinking to not credit that.
Okay,
I was thinking to just charge $50 per day at the signing of your contract, and you lose that $50. And then that kind of goes into the time and everything. And then if you have your event, you have it. If you don't, you don't. But you're paying $50 for that booking fee, basically, and a
but it's
little
not-
bit of time.
It doesn't come off of
It's
their
not
fees.
coming
Yeah, it
off
doesn't
the
come.
fee. The fee
Or
is
we
still
could-
the fee.
Or we could do like you're saying and do 150 or 200 at the signing, and then I can credit it back if you want me to do it that way instead.
Okay.
But those are kind of our two. It's just if you want to try to help paying for the time that's put into these contracts and into the
That's what we're
you
trying
know,
to do.
yeah, then
So
this
we
is-
don't want to, so you're saying leave it like what you're recommending?
This either needs to be, yes, an additional booking fee for them giving us something that's not credited back, or we just up our costs a little bit more maybe on everything to accommodate that, and then just do away with the booking fee, and then, or do it back as a credit again. Continue to keep it as a credit.
I think if you're gonna make it where it's not taken off their deal, just change your wording to a booking fee and not a deposit fee. Just make
Yeah,
it as
just-
a booking
Okay.
fee and charge them $50 to book something, and it's doesn't come off of their deal. That's my opinion.
And
should
I'm
just
I'm
pay
good with
that.
that language, make it booking fee, non-refundable, and it's,
Whatever you,
but I don't think $50, I think you should be covering more than 1 hour. I think you're spending more than 1 hour.
Well, I
On
generally do.
anything.
I mean, the ones that I don't is like, let's say we get a team roping, and they schedule 5 weekends with me all at once. So, you know, if they do a 2 or a 1 or a 2 day, but they do them all at once. So those are the ones where it's like, or a barrel race. $50 per day is, you know, kind of overcharging them, I guess, per se, compared to another event. Because I can, you know, like some of those barrel races, I'll schedule 20 days all at once. You know, we'll do a contract for 20 days, line it out, and then if I add an extra $50 per day on each one of those, you know, then that's a considerable amount of cost to them. And I'm not putting a lot of time into it.
but you're taking that $50 off their fee.
I am right now, yes.
Yeah.
But you're recommending to not take it off their fee
Yes.
and just,
Exactly. As a way to try to, because I was trying to figure out, well, how do I
so what kind of
cover that
revenue is that
cost?
gonna generate at $50 a day per the fees that you currently have?
What was that again?
What revenue is that going to create at your
So-
current, what you currently have to book?
Last year I had, I want to say it was about 75 events. You could probably take 100 days times 50 and get about what I would get. So that's,
So you book 100 days,
5,000.
yes,
$5,000?
that would be, trying to think off the top of my head. Yeah, that'd be 5,000, yep. If I was to book 100 individual days, yes.
We book 100 days out there?
Well, we book, God, I'd have to look back. I can't remember. I thought we booked about 70-some events last year. Some of those events run 2 or 3 days.
All right. Let's
So-
move on, because we got a lot to get through.
Okay.
Question, Kent? I'm sorry,
No,
Commissioner.
just a point, booking and deposit, booking deposit and fees are sort of an incentive not to cancel, is what they are. That way, if you cancel out, we keep your fee. If not,
Yeah.
fine.
It's a booking fee, non-refundable. If you say deposit, people think they're gonna get a deposit back. So I'm good with that language. I still think that $50 is inadequate. I think we should cover at least 1 hour of your time. And I can get with Phaedra and find out what 1 hour of your time is valued at. All right, indoor arena.
Okay, so the indoor arena, we currently are at 450 per day. If we bump that up to 750, and then I was kind of thinking any of the arena events that we have, such as barrel races or team ropings or things like that, where we don't have to do a lot and it's already an arena, charging $100 an hour, then that would include us to rake the arena for them, and then half rate on it. The second schedule that I sent to up that more was $920 per day instead of $750. I mean, this is another one that's like, if we compare it to some of the other fairgrounds around us, they're around that $900 mark. You know, do we want to jump that high? That's our question, I guess. Would we rather just go?
Where are we at? Where are we at right now?
450 right now.
450.
So this is your proposal now, fee schedule 2?
Yes, that's the second one that I
Okay.
made to try to cover all of our costs. Which, that's where I kind of, questioning whether or not we're gonna get the amount of events that we would normally get if I go that high all at once.
Well,
Or maybe we go that high on a couple things such as the indoor and the outdoor, but maybe not on our stalls and stuff.
thoughts?
Tend to agree that $920 a day might be a little steep to start out with.
So let's look at the 750 then.
Okay.
And, but here's the other deal is that we need to think about is that we can't wait 2 decades to make this
No.
change. We've got to do it incrementally,
It's gonna be
peanuts
reviewed every year,
at every year and not
not every decade, or,
2 decades.
yeah, every quarter, or century.
And maybe that's the thing, we just kind of go off this one that I made first with the lower numbers, and then we decide to do a percentage each year or something, maybe over time. To
So
increase
go all
those.
the way to the bottom then. Let me, because we've seen these. Go all the way to the bottom. What, you said we're still bleeding about 30,000, 35,000 a year?
Yeah, if I go to this fee schedule, that one right there that's on the screen, then we're probably still gonna be about 30,000 negative,
Do
at the
you-
end of the year.
With this schedule, do you see us losing any events?
I don't think we would on this one, because I think this is a reasonable adjustment to get with the times and inflation and things like that, and we're not going to just throw it at them, and have a shocker come back.
Well, we
So-
wouldn't start these until
January 1.
January 1 anyway. We're giving people 6 months.
Yeah, and
To
that's fine,
realize
because
that-
most of my contracts for next year are already set anyways, so, next year I will kind of inform them and let them know this is kind of what we're looking at for the next, when they sign their new contract. So a lot of these, we're probably not gonna see that rate until 2024, because they've already got their 2023 stuff under contract. unless we have a new event come in, you know, and then obviously I'd be charging the new rates. But I don't think there would be much sticker shock, I guess, per se, on this one. Just because we are trying to increase to something so we don't, you know, lose that much out there. But at the end of the day, we're still gonna be losing. And it might be, you know, that's kind of why I did propose, in the last time I came and talked to you about maybe adjusting what we pull from CTF to help cover some of that.
Which we are. We're doing that this year already.
Yes, we are.
We're
But
pulling a significant amount.
Yeah, this year we're pulling a significant amount to try to help cover, but if we look at the revenues that we do get each individual year from that fund, then I think if we did increase it or allocate a little bit more every year, we would still have, you know, about 30,000 plus going into that account every year.
Well, I think we could cover the 30,000 for CTF this year. Well, we're gonna be covering it for 2 years. Because all of your events are already booked, you said, for next year?
Yes. Pretty much all my
So it's-
annual stuff up till
So
now.
we're gonna have to cover it for 2 years.
Yes. Yep, it's gonna have to get covered for another year, yep.
That fund went up almost $150,000.
Yeah, so we can
In
cover
the
the,
audit.
we can cover the 30,000 for 2 years.
I think it was almost $150,000 in that audit that I saw that went up. I don't have anything with me, but we need to visit this every year.
Absolutely, because
It
we're,
ought to be put on a schedule to visit at a certain,
so
whichever-
before
whatever time.
budget, every year, this needs to be put on our agenda, so make sure that we get it at a workshop this time every year to see what it's gonna take to cover those funds, because here's the situation we're at. I'm looking out in the room and everybody that I see, we're looking at trying to figure out how do we cover another 40, another 50, another $70,000. Well, you just can't do that. So that's why we're asking, it's like, what is it gonna take to just, we gotta break even, we can't stop losing. We just can't keep bleeding.
fund.
Not yet. Oh, this is the old book, but that's what it shows what we had in 2020, which this is not gonna be correct. Yeah, we're taking out probably 150,000 of that this year for the Band-Aid that we're putting on.
Right.
So, okay, I think, obviously, we're not gonna make a decision today, but I think for the conversation of, one, we need to make sure that we have this every year this time,
Okay,
and then figure out incrementally if it's 3%, 6%, 9%, whatever these fees have to be adjusted so that we stop the bleeding.
okay,
Makes sense? Because a decade, 2 decades at a time just doesn't work. And now it's gonna be sticker shock to people, and people are gonna be upset. But,
And it's,
I mean,
it's really hard to just break even because you've got to make improvements. You know, there's stuff that wears out, things that need to be fixed, and you've got to pay for that.
yes, there is.
and CTF, we can use a lot to
Yeah.
help us with that. But, I mean, we can't, we know we're going into this year losing $30,000. That's, I struggle with that. I struggle a lot with that.
Well, it's a lot better than our previous years.
Right, but look at CTF. I mean, look at what we're looking just for the suppression system and the static water system. That's all gonna have to come out of CTF. So pretty quick, that fund is gonna be zero. That's what we're looking at. And then you're gonna come back in 2 years and say, I don't have any money to do anything with. Because that's what's gonna happen. And what if CTF gets cut even at the last minute of the last hour of the last day? Do you see what we're thinking?
I do.
Because we're seeing that happening to us right now.
Yeah, they're nicking this out from every angle they can think of.
I mean,
And I mean, and they're not doing it really with taxes, they're doing it with fees.
So I guess obviously we'll have this and we'll decide, Justin, whether we go with 1 or 2 tomorrow.
Okay.
Um,
I do want to add one little thing to the number 1 that I don't have in there, and maybe we put an hourly rate on the kitchen. I put that in number 2, but I do have.
Where's
some-
that at?
So if you go to the second one, if you look at the kitchen, which is on the first page,
There it
see,
is.
I put 25 per hour on that. I didn't put that into the first one, but if we do go with that first schedule, I'd like to put that in that first schedule.
Yeah.
I do have some people that would like to use our kitchen once in a while for commissary, just for like cleaning their dishes and things like that, because they have to have an actual commissary. But right now I have to charge them a full day, which is $100, and they might only be in there for an hour just to do dishes. So if I have something where maybe I can have a few people come in once in a while just to do that, for an hour, 2 hours a day.
So what are you considering a day? 8 hours? 10 hours? 12 hours?
So a day,
24
yeah, I
hours?
mean, a day gives you basically, if today is Monday, you come in today, Monday, and you have it till this afternoon, so you gotta be out by Tuesday. So I guess technically if they wanna go till midnight, they could go to midnight. But most of my stuff is only no more than 8 hours, so.
So I think we need to be specific. If it's a day, is it 24 hours or what is it? Because if it's 24 hours and now we're using up lights and heat and everything else that goes along with it, man, it's $130 is not gonna cover that either.
No, it's not, but then I guess
So
in that
then
instance,
if we're gonna
maybe-
say $130 for 8-hour period,
Okay, that's fine, we can do that.
because otherwise we have to look at everything else that we're gonna cost. And if it's $25 an hour and you're gonna come in at midnight, are we providing the heat with that, or is it from 8 to 5? I think you just need to be specific. Kitchen hours of rent are from 7 to, 12 hours figure, 7 to
Okay.
7.
And that's fine, and I think most things would be okay with that. I guess the only,
And I'm fine with an hourly rate, that's fine, but
I mean, do we just do an hourly rate and do away with a daily rate? I guess that's the other thing to put in the perception or look at. Of course, $25 an hour is gonna be $200 in 8 hours.
I just,
Which then I think we're getting
where
a
can
little
you
bit-
rent a commercial kitchen for $25 an hour?
It's in Montezuma County Fairgrounds.
Well, that's
a lot
what
of the
we're
other
getting ready to
fairgrounds.
do, but I'm not sure that,
So,
Sorry.
Good point.
so right now, we are at $100
there's a lot in
a
that
day.
commercial kitchen.
Yeah,
And
I
if
know.
anything gets,
But here's the other thing, we gotta be able to rent it out. And if I go $200 a day, I cannot rent that thing out. So if somebody needs that for 8 hours, and it's $25 an hour, they're not gonna rent it for 8 hours. They're gonna go somewhere else.
where?
Well, I know there's a couple places around. I think there's one in Dolores that you can go rent a commissary, and I don't know if there's another in here in Cortez or not. But they're gonna go find something else.
We're just trying to
They're gonna
cover
do
our
it
costs.
illegally,
If
per
it's
se.
not being utilized, it's not costing us anything, correct? So
Yes.
whether you rent it out or whether we don't, we're just trying to cover our costs.
Oh, I know it. I know we are.
So,
But I'm also trying to look at it and be like, well, I want somebody to be in there,
Sure.
and I have to make that feasible, I guess, for someone. So that's where I was thinking, well, if we do $25 an hour, so if somebody wants to come in there for 2 or 3 hours, you know, they can give me $25 an hour. If they want to rent it for a day, then it's $130. And we can, I mean, I can put a minimum, I guess, or, you know, 8 hour, 12 hours or whatever, if that needs to be added.
Well, you probably need to put an 8-hour maximum if you're gonna do it by the day.
That's what I
Yeah.
would think. It's not a 24-hour, but when you use the term day, technically, I could argue with you to say it's 24 hours.
Well, you
That's
can.
a day.
And a lot of those events or whatever that do rent the kitchen, I mean, you gotta think, they're in there for 12 to 14 hours, cause they come in at 7 o'clock, they gotta prep, they gotta get ready, and then they do their event or whatever, and then they're cleaning up afterwards. So, it does take some of those, especially if it's an 8-hour event, you know, 12 hours in that kitchen, it really does. But then there's others where it doesn't take them much at all,
So you want to leave it just at an hourly rate? Because then that's fair to somebody that wants it for 3 hours or somebody that wants it for 12.
It is, but maybe if we go to that, I don't know if you wanna keep it at 25.
Okay.
Jonathan,
I was just gonna say just max it out after a certain amount. So the person's gonna be in there, say 15 hours, they're looking at 350, whatever, max it out at 300 for, once you hit a certain limit, then.
And we could do that, $25 an hour with a $200 max.
Why don't you get with Jonathan and try and work that out? Because these just seem,
is the cleaning deposit's refundable, right?
Yes,
yeah.
so that's the cleaning deposit that we currently charge for just the kitchen. So if somebody wants to come just rent the kitchen from me, that's what I charge them, $100.
Can you clean that kitchen for $100? I mean, seriously, can you do it? They could make a
Depends on-
horrible mess of
I
the
know
kitchen.
it, and if they do, no. If it's just a little bit, yes, but
But it's a deposit, so you're gonna give that right back. And if it's not, then you're gonna keep it.
it's kind of hard to charge somebody $300 deposit when you're only charging them $100 for the kitchen. So I know that's where the $100 came from, because it's $100 and we charge them $100 a day.
Okay, so charge $200 a day and $200 cleaning deposit, because that's, you're just holding that check until they're done, and then you're gonna give it back or keep what's. Get with Jonathan,
'Kay.
please, because we gotta get this done. I struggle with using another $30,000 out of CTF to try and cover this, because we're not covering our costs.
Okay. Everything else in that first schedule that I sent, you know, is kind of, I guess, what I would recommend over the second one, just because of, you know, trying not to get too much of a sticker shock to people, but that was the only one little thing about the kitchen that I didn't have in that first one. Whether or not we want to do something hourly, so.
All right, commissioners, anything else?
No.
All right. Okay, thank you, Justin.
Yep.
You have nothing but more work to
I
do.
know it. I know it.
Maybe
I
we're
got
gonna get
enough
something
already.
easy here in a minute.
All right, you might stick around and listen to this next presentation too,
Okay,
to see what we're asking, what we're gonna get asked for there.
okay.
All right,
I'll be here.
okay, thanks. All right, we're gonna move along as quickly as I can. At 3:30, I have to make a call with our attorney. So if we're not done, then I'm gonna turn it over to Commissioner Lindsay. All right,
So we have the
do you wanna look at the AAA?
We have the Grow Dome MOU. I wonder if we should start with that one, since Justin's
Yeah,
kind of
okay, let's
involved with
just do that one.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Justin.
Okay.
Well, and really, and I think I can kind of jump in on this one, because I have looked at this
No, I don't
MOU
think
pretty
we're gonna-
extensively, and I want to keep Justin on
I
that.
think Justin's been beat up enough for this
no.
round, but it's not over with yet,
I don't
Justin.
know how 3 ended up on the same day.
I guess you're just lucky.
So I guess to start, I just want to run through this thing with you, and then I have some comments that I want to run by you. So just to give you a sense of what we're looking at with this MOU generally and the obligations it's going to create. Basically, the San Juan Basin Area Agency on Aging will provide Montezuma County with the grow dome. They will pay for the installation, bed materials, soil for the beds, and for foundation and flat work. We have to provide the permanent foundation for the dome. We provide site leveling for the foundation, plumbing, electricity, interior grow bed, soil. We place undersoil heating pipes. We provide blue board skirt or hardware cloth and landscape fabric, and we have to install a frost-resistant tap. So Montezuma County's putting in the majority of the infrastructure. They're providing the grow dome. In addition to that, we've also got to provide ladders and scaffolding. We've got to operate the grow dome for 10 years, and we have to work with the gardener that they're going to provide for 5 years if they provide it. So issues as I looked through this thing, the first thing I think that jumps out to me is this original MOU that was sent over was made between the San Juan Basin Area Agency on Aging and the Montezuma County Senior Services. I don't know whether that's a requirement to this MOU, but my assumption would be that we would want to do this with Montezuma County if we're going to do this. I don't think that Senior Services want to be involved with that. Am I correct, John?
Come on down, Jonathan, because I need you to talk into a mic.
Come join the fun.
The grow dome was, in a sense, offered to.
Turn it on.
Sorry. The grow dome was offered to the senior center multiple times over the last couple of years from the AAA. It's just a project I wasn't interested in. I didn't see it having value for us. So it was kind of something I had turned down, and then it just came about however.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was not, it was something I just was not interested in.
Yep.
Nothing against it, it just wasn't for us.
Okay. And so, I mean, I think that we had kind of talked about the possibility of putting this out at the fairgrounds. My recommendation would be if you guys want to enter into this MOU, I think we probably need to change it to an MOU between AAA and Montezuma County. That's just a general comment.
Okay. So,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, my first question is, do you have cost of the infrastructure?
Yes. Yes, we have some costs. And I don't know if we have to bid any of this stuff out. So that's where I don't know.
Well, what kind of cost are we talking
it's-
about? Are we talking about stuff that falls underneath the
it's-
procurement policy, or?
Yeah, if it's all
Yeah.
stuff that we're gonna put in ourselves anyway, we're not hiring any of it out.
So when we do the foundation work and things like that, we're gonna have to hire that out. Because
Okay.
we're not gonna be pouring the concrete and doing the foundation in-house. And I know that was one of the costs that they were wanting us to do.
Right, which is
Yep.
part of this MOU.
The other thing that we were looking at was providing irrigation water to this grow dome, which is something that I wanted to kind of talk to you about. If we look at doing irrigation to this, it's probably in our best interest to not even run irrigation to it. It would just be to hook it up to our domestic water or our potable water. And the reason for that is they want our potable water hooked up to this grow dome regardless, because they want to be able to run it during the winter months. So we're only looking at 6 months out of the year that we have irrigation. They're telling me that this thing's going to use 40 gallons per day. So if you calculate that out to a month, you're around 1,500 gallon per month. Well, that's only about $6. $5-6 a month in water usage. So over 6 months, 30-40 bucks for water.
Okay.
So I don't know if we want to do the irrigation part, which would be kind of complex as far as trying to get water lines ran and pressure tanks put in. The other part was the electrical, but I don't know if that's something we need to add in there, because we were talking about just doing it all solar stuff, so it'd be solar fans and et cetera. So we shouldn't have to run electricity to the site. Everything's on solar. The only question mark that I would have when I looked into this was being a way to heat it.
I think that's the whole purpose, is you don't heat them at all, do you?
No.
I think it's more a venting system to get the vents open to exhaust heat.
Well, in their thing, there are options to heat this thing. So in the wintertime, if you hit a month where, you know, it's 0 degrees, 5 degrees for a week, you know, does that hurt your crop in there?
And speaking of the crop, I just want to say too, it's going to be almost zero possibility the senior center can really use much of anything. For us to take produce, fresh produce, it has to come just right from the ground. We can't take anything processed. It has to be brought to us, you know, in the cardboard box where we would do the washing, whatever, and then use it for whatever. That's, you know, we in a sense, we operate like a restaurant. You don't, you know, you order stuff, you know, that. So that is challenging. So that was I did want to touch on, that's another reason. It's not something practical for us. I'm all for the fruits and vegetables or whatever this thing produces. It's just really challenging for us to even use it. I don't have the staff, the time. We'd have to have someone dedicated just to it, the menu planning. There's just numerous reasons. It's really not something for the senior center, us. And I know most centers haven't taken these. You'd need a
So,
staff.
I'm gonna ask, at your last meeting with the AAA, their whole concept behind this grow dome was to sustain the senior population, is that correct?
That's what their intent was, that they thought that the seniors could grow some of their own food. Basically, that it was a place where they could actually grow some of their, that's what they originally, when they bought these 5 of them. And originally, we weren't going to get one of them.
No, I had turned it down.
But Dolores County turned theirs down, because it's just like there, how many, I guess the question I have is, do you honestly think we're gonna get seniors to go out to the fairgrounds and take care of this thing?
They've done their gardening. They're done, you know, with that kind of life. It's no. The answer is no.
See, that's what concerns me, is I don't know that we're gonna get somebody to go out there and take care of this thing and actually, and that's what their intent was, that to engage the seniors to do this kind of thing, to grow this garden produce that it could be used in a senior center. And that was their intent, to engage the seniors into some activity like this. But where it's out at the fairgrounds, are we gonna really get somebody that's gonna take care of this thing out there at the fairgrounds? Because that concerns me, because I don't think that will happen. I think it may for a real short time, but sustainability, I don't think it will happen.
It's not
That's
going to
just my
happen.
opinion.
That's
but-
just-
Well, and just to piggyback off that, you know, one of the issues legally that I wanted to bring up to you guys is, I mean, certainly it has this concept in there that we're gonna utilize their master gardener if they provide one for 5 years. Nothing in this MOU obligates them to provide a master gardener for 5 years. It obligates us to utilize them if one's provided. But if these guys decide not to do it, then we're kind of off the hook, at least as this is written. I mean, I think it's a negotiation point, but as this is written, that's the way it's going to be. You know, another legal issue we're going to have to look at, AAA wants to be named as an additional insured. That's an insurance issue that's going to conceivably be more costs on our policy. I haven't contacted our insurance group yet, but.
I did,
Okay.
and with that being said, on the insurance part, I talked to Bentley over it with
Yep.
our insurance stuff, and he said we'd want to do an extra policy just for that. We would
Yep.
want a full policy just for this road dome, because they want to be an additional insured on that, and we're looking at about $2,000 a year
And
of extra cost.
I assumed there was gonna be additional costs involved in that. There's some significant cost in this thing.
Yeah, I'm
And,
not-
you know, if they decide to pull,
Yeah.
if they give us any funding, then we're locked in. For 10 years, we gotta run this thing.
Well, this is the reason.
You know, I was worried about it and looking at it, quite frankly.
Even to wash it, it has to be washed in a 3-compartment sink with chlorine. It's got to be done, sanitized properly. What if?
Which is just one more thing that we're
Yes.
gonna have to put on you to take care of.
And that's the
Which
other
is-
thing, who's gonna maintain this, and it's probably either gonna be us at the fairgrounds or our maintenance department, and I know both of us are already busy with all the things that we got. Plus, it sounds like it's only a 10-year lifespan on this thing. So after 10 years, what do we do with this?
No,
Do
I
we
don't,
have to-
I don't think that's
I
correct.
don't
but-
think that's an issue, Justin, because my daughter's got one of these, it's a small one, and it heats itself. You know, you don't have to have a heating system in that thing. As a matter of fact, all of the panels, when it gets too hot in there, it opens itself. It's all on, really, a little old solar panel runs everything that you have to run inside that thing, and it does, you don't.
And just a heads up, I didn't say for them
They
to
stay-
take this to the
They
county.
stay plenty hot.
I didn't,
As a matter of
this
fact,
was
they get
thrown
way
on,
too hot.
Yeah.
how this came about was just dumped, actually in a totally different meeting in my office, that this was gonna happen with the county, so this was something I never anticipated, planned on being a part of, and so just want everyone to be
This would
aware.
almost be a better situation for extension.
It's not for the senior center.
No.
It's
Well-
just not.
So when you look at that first section of this thing, it says this has to be something for
For the
seniors.
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 So
Yeah.
that's
For
why we
seniors.
can't really do anything with the youth. Otherwise, that might be a possibility.
Well, that's an interesting question that might be worth raising with AAA, because, I mean, obviously, they got money to fund this for the purpose of providing the seniors with food. I don't know how much flexibility they have in terms of being able to dedicate this other places. I don't know. That's a question for them. You know,
It comes through the State Unit on Aging, I would imagine, is where the flows down. So, I mean, senior centers just don't have the capacity, the ability, the staffing, all of those to deal with this, wherever this idea came from, to get seniors involved in gardening or growing or whatever. Yeah. So it's been, and I've been, many, many times I was asked and re-asked about it, and because they have a time frame to get rid of them, I think, and it just wasn't something for us.
So what's the, just without breaking it down, what's the total cost of the infrastructure with the foundation and the water do you have?
So if you kind of look at our side, let's say we put irrigation water to it, do the foundation, and what was the other thing that we had to provide? We got to provide gravel for the foundation. Putting a water line in. Pressure treated wood for raised beds. So I'd have to calculate some of these for a total without
Don't forget
breaking
the
it all
$2,000
down.
for the insurance.
Do what?
Don't forget the $2,000 for the insurance.
I guess I'm just trying to look at it, is it really gonna benefit us, or is it just gonna be an operation and maintenance?
well, and to the extent
Nightmare
that,
to
to the
the-
extent that you guys want to move forward with this, and I mean, I certainly have some concerns, but, I mean, if you do, I would certainly try to negotiate out that part that we have to name them as an additional insured. I mean, their liability with this thing is
Right.
very small.
They
There's
have
no
no-
reason that we should have to name them.
They have
And
no
so,
liability.
you know, if you guys want to move forward with this, I would suggest negotiating that out of this MOU.
Well, if you consider if it was gonna be the senior center doing it, I mean, even the county, as a county government is gonna struggle with this, because it's gonna be continued ongoing. And there's some other costs on there too, I think, that are potential too, as far as maintenance, upkeep, repair, that tape.
Absolutely.
Apparently, there's a very expensive tape that you have to purchase through the company. I can't imagine our little staff over there, trying to do this thing. It just was not,
Okay,
yeah.
So by the time, so if we pay for the things that we're supposed to pay for according to this MOU, now that's probably, maybe we could get a lot of that funded through grants. But our portion of it, we're probably looking at $40,000 for our portion of this greenhouse. That's for what they're stating in the MOU, that we provide foundation, plumbing, electricity, the site.
so now you're looking at
road beds.
$70,000 for next year that you need,
I-
and I don't have it.
Exactly.
Where do I
Now-
find it?
Now, I know this is something I think they thought they could get through grants, but I don't know how much
We're still
of
trying
it.
to backfill AAA
Come on
for
up,
cutting
we
your
have
budget.
we have our grant writer here also.
Ah, perfect, she
So
can
we'll-
probably answer that
We'll
for
find
me.
out and see what she can do, if anything, because, I mean, if it's specifically set up for the seniors to come out there to get them outside for activity, I understand the concept behind it, but how many are gonna actually do it?
Well, that's what concern, I mean, if it was right here in Cortez or someplace that was easily accessible, that's one thing, but to get them out to the fairgrounds to do this, that's what concerns me more than anything, is how much participation are you going to get?
Well, and just to be clear, there's nothing in this MOU as it's currently written that says this has to be for use only by the seniors. I mean,
So it
that's,
could be used by
I mean, it
the
could,
community?
the way I read this, it could
Can I-
conceivably be used by the community, it could be used by 4-H. I mean, there's a lot of different entities that could use this. There's nothing in this MOU that says this grow dome is gonna be, 55 and over or 65 and over, and you gotta present your ID at the door. Nothing like that.
Some of us look younger at 45, let's just say. So can I speak to a couple of these things? As the grant writer, I can speak to the fact that I've already practically secured funding for the irrigation or hooking us up to city water. I've just been waiting for bids on that, of what it's gonna cost. If we need electrical, I need a bid on that. So I've been emailing back and forth with Justin for a bit, and he's been doing his best to get back and forth with AAA and with Mel, who was doing a bid on the irrigation. So on that side of things, I can request what we need in grant funding and see what we can do.
For the infrastructure?
Yeah,
Is
for the
that
initial
the-
infrastructure. As far as, with insurance, I didn't know about that amount. I don't know what we would do with that. But then speaking to being able to use the dome, I was on the initial call that I think several of us were on when it was just being discovered that we could have this potentially. I do believe, as long as it's used for senior meals, the food, I think that in the future we could probably have other people doing the farming too, but the food has to be used for the senior center. But it's a question that if money isn't the barrier, and that's the question that we're concerned about, I think it's worth asking AAA before we turn it down. But it sounds like there's other issues going on. But I just wanted to clarify on the grant funding that that's a possibility.
Well, if the food has to be used just for the senior center,
I think
Or
it has to at least
seniors.
go to that. Now, I've had a conversation with the Share House about potential partnerships there. They'd be super excited about being able to use produce that isn't being used by the seniors. We've talked about even building out a wash station there. So there's lots of possibilities that me and Jessica Thurman, our economic development coordinator, have been having in the background about this to try to see how it would work. My concern would be who's going to champion the partnership with this horticulturist that's going to be working in the dome.
If we get one.
Right, and it sounded like it was a first sure thing when we were talking with AAA, so it surprises me that in the contract and
Well,
MOU it's not.
It doesn't obligate them
Okay.
to provide it. The MOU by its language doesn't obligate them. I don't know whether they have intentions to or not. I haven't talked to anybody at AAA, but the language in and of itself doesn't obligate them to do that.
They have the funding to pay for a horticulturist for 5 years, and then after that, it's the county responsibility. So they would do that. That would be there.
And I guess the question is what is a horticulture, what do they charge per year after your first 5 years?
Yeah, and finance department had questions too, and I actually sent an email this morning to Christina Knoll, who's the person that we've been working with on this, and to Jonathan actually, just saying, hey, who's our champion and what is expected of the person who's going to be working on this project. So there's some questions out there. I know Phaedra had questions about, is this horticulturist going to be on our payroll? There's just things that need to be answered, I think, before anything is official, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. I think it just needs to be researched, and it needs to be on somebody's plate who's going to carry it.
so we don't, when do we need to sign this, or not sign this, or just let them know? Is that,
I don't know. My understanding is they wanted to try to do this project next spring.
They want it built by spring, I think. Spring is the last thing I heard,
so
so.
next?
These are a lot of good questions that
April, May.
need answers to before, I'll sign on to this.
Spring was the time pretty much settled on, just because it's too late now to be getting it up, you know, with fall and winter coming. So the thought would be springtime is to do it. It's just a timing issue for that.
Okay.
Do you know if, did you visit with Nicole about this whole thing? The grow domes, the other ones that they were putting in?
That AAA was putting in?
Yes.
No, I've only been involved in the
See,
conversation about this one,
They
but,
bought 5 of them with the
but I've
ARPA
seen
funds.
it in action. When I worked up in Lake County, they have one that's up and running, and it's amazing the amount of food that is growing in there and how it's just beautiful. So I'm a little partial to at least considering the idea, but again, if there isn't a champion, we don't want to see it sit there and get dilapidated.
I guess that's my biggest concern. If we don't have somebody that's gonna champion it or run it, it's gonna
Well-
be another,
Well, I think a lot of seniors like to do gardening and do stuff like that. They do, but it's got to be accessible to them. That's what concerns me about it being out there instead of around. Just like who shows up to eat is mostly the people right here in the city, in Cortez, because it's accessible to them. But if it's clear out there, how are they going to get out there and stuff? It's because a lot of those people are not mobile. They can't go.
right.
I guess that's what concerns me more than anything, is whether we'd actually get people to go out there and take care of it. Because they need to be doing it.
Okay, well, find out the information that you can from Lake County, since you mentioned that, and find out who is their champion, who does that.
I do know about that, and it's a whole nonprofit that runs theirs. So it's a totally different situation. It's not an area agency on aging that does theirs. I'm just saying that when you see it in action in pictures, it's
So
a really
would the-
beautiful thing as far as what can be produced, but it really does need to have buy-in from the community.
We have that group of community gardeners around here that
So I guess what I'm saying is we need a partnership with an organization, or we need somebody at the county who's taking responsibility to work with this horticulturist. So, if there's a department that can take it on, it would be awesome. But I don't know if that exists. That was my question about it. And again, I emailed Christina, and then I talked to John, and now I have my answer. I have my answer that it's not your thing.
Maybe we should talk to extension and see.
So I think we probably need, okay, I'm gonna give you more work, Justin.
Me?
You're gonna be busy. Don't jump 4 items on the agenda right off the bat, man. Find out through extension, find out through the food pantry, find out is there really a champion that can help us do this? Because we really don't have the resources to take this on.
yeah.
Now, if
Extension
you
might
could-
have those partnerships
If you can
already.
get the grant funding to get the infrastructure in and the O&M, I mean, I'd be willing to at least, entertain it, but
It depends on what the total is going to be. I mean, Justin was talking about maybe 500 to hook it up to water, municipal water. Irrigation system's going to be a little bit different, but we'd need an actual bid before I can put a proposal in.
So if we do irrigation, you're probably looking in the vicinity of $7,000 for us to do it. If we do it onto our potable water, $500, because it's just a hydrant and the water already runs over that way, so it's digging a hole, plumbing into it. Very minimal cost to just hook it into our water.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I've been already told by, it was Chaffa that we're approaching with this proposal for this plus another project for some community impact funds that they have for our county. And I was told by Chris Lopez, just toss it into this proposal that we're doing for this other project, and they'll look it over. And so it's probable that, we can get that. I don't know what the grand total is that's available for this project. Again, it would go into a proposal. It's not guaranteed at the moment, but it's probable.
okay. All right. Well, we'll put you 4 or 5 more bullet points on our next work session, Justin.
I might not be feeling good that day, but.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. We'll just step out. Okay. right. Our update of our employee handbook is going to be canceled. We are waiting on some other updates on that, so that'll be taken off our agenda. So the MOU presentation with the BLM, Mr. Dietrich.
So we actually have two MOUs that we wanted to discuss today. One is going to be an MOU dealing with the big game habitat and migration corridor, and the other one's going to be the MOU related to the critical habitat designation for sage grouse. I don't really care which one we start with. Let's start with the sage grouse. Does that work?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that
again,
works
just
fine.
to let you know, James, at 3:30, we have to step out for a phone call with the Assistant Attorney General, so.
Okay.
And so just to give you guys an overview, just because we are on limited time, I mean, we were gonna kind of run through each of the responsibilities or kind of what this designates and what kind of responsibilities this puts on the county and what kind of responsibilities this puts on BLM. I ran through both of these MOUs. In my mind, there's really no reason that we would not participate in these MOUs. I mean, really, as a general matter, what this is going to allow us to do is become more engaged in the planning process with the BLM. The MOUs, you can withdraw by providing 30 days notice, so I mean, we can get out of it pretty easily. But really, what these things are going to do is it's going to allow us access to more information in a general sense and allow us the opportunity to comment. Our obligations under these things are going to be to comment, to be engaged.
I think you covered it very well there. Very well.
Good job, Ian. Got it all done.
Yeah, both of them are for a resource management plan amendment, and I think there's a nexus for both of them that really involve, oil and gas is kind of the nexus for both of them, but it also does spill over into all of our other multiple resource activities out there also, which include grazing, could potentially involve timber resources on the forest and things of that nature too. So I think yes, my recommendation is to participate with the BLM under the MOU. I believe we're also, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, in that we're also under FLIPMA and all the coordination responsibilities. The BLM, the agency, they try to use these two terms interchangeably. We've typically drawn a line between the two, but my opinion on it is even if you enter into an MOU, FLIPMA still stands. That's the law of the land, and they're still obligated to do what they said they'd do under FLIPMA.
So that includes both of them, cooperation and coordination.
That's my take on it.
Okay, and when I read this, that's what I got too, because what they always fail is the cooperation.
Well, they
Correct.
fail a lot in coordination too, I would say. So
Well,
this is, it's
But
important to
through
engage in
that
both.
flip map, they have to do both.
That's correct. They have to
Okay.
do both. Yeah.
So then I after reading them,
Yeah.
seeing those two specific words, I was okay with it.
I think it brings us an ability to get information from these federal agencies. I mean, I think that's really what it does, and it's going to allow us a seat at the table.
Yeah, and cooperatively, which is the big one, in my opinion, that they have to cooperate, not just coordinate.
Right.
Because they could say, well, we coordinated, we set up a meeting, but we're not gonna cooperate. Gotcha.
They're supposed to be doing that anyway through coordination, but this puts their name on the paper, and it spells out what they're gonna do. Yes.
Okay.
And if you guys have questions between now and tomorrow too, we can certainly address those during tomorrow's meeting. We've got a decision regarding both these MOUs on the agenda for tomorrow, and so we can always discuss it then too.
I don't have any other questions on these two. When I read that and I saw those two terms in there, those two words, then I'm okay with it, specifically the cooperation.
Okay, very good then. All right. I'll bring back a clean copy tomorrow then.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you, gentlemen.
all right. Thank you, James. Gosh, Justin needs to stick around to see how easy that was. All right. Gentlemen, anything else?
No.
Okay. Well, then we will adjourn this meeting and we will go on to our other meeting. Mr. Attorney and myself.